This video is meant to help you with Excel Module 1, getting us started in Excel. So I have here a workbook open. A file in Excel is called a workbook. And you see this area down here, this is a worksheet, and that's where we'll type all the information. This one has 3 different tabs that I have. They all have a name. You can name them and rename them. When you start from scratch, you just open a brand new Excel workbook. You'll see it. So it'll say sheet 1 is all that will be there, but I've added a few just for teaching about this. But this kind of piece of paper in Excel is called a worksheet. The whole file in Excel is called a workbook. Like in Word, it's called a document. Well, in Excel, the file is called a workbook. Excel is based on an old concept. It's like an accountant spreadsheet. And the great part about Excel is when you change the numbers, everything will update itself. If you referred to a number in a formula, for example, if you were on a piece of paper and writing everything in pencil and you changed your formula or wanted to change one of the numbers, you'd have to erase everything and start over. So the great part of Excel is that we'll learn how to refer to cells that have numbers or values in them. And if any of those numbers or values change, then everything will automatically be updated. And that's kind of the point of Excel. So just taking a look at the window, it's similar to Word, but Excel you'll see is green. Remember, each application in Microsoft has a color associated with it. We still have the quick access toolbar. We still have a ribbon with tabs, but we'll see that some of our tab names are different. Underneath the ribbon, we have something new here. This is called the name box. There's a little area here. It currently says A1. What it's going to show you is the location of your active cell. I just moved and see now it says C4. And then this here is called your formula bar. You can write in your formula bar. I tend not to. A formula bar is also a good place to edit cells. There's, again, just like in Word, there's 2 or 3 different ways to do everything, to do many of the concepts that you'll learn. These are columns, and it looks just, it says A, B, C, D, E. All the columns have a letter identifying them, and then these are rows that go from left to right, and each row has a number. And then you see this dark green square here compared to others. That's just known as my active cell. That's what cell is currently active. And if I were to type something, I'll just type Montgomery College. I can just type that. You see that it goes in where the active cell was. I'm going to hit enter just to kind of execute. You can hit the right arrow or the down arrow, or just get out of that cell in any way. Yeah, and even up arrow, anything, just get out of that cell, and then whatever you had typed in there is now active. Notice what I typed was larger than the width of the column. That's okay. It just spills into the next column as long as there's nothing in that column. If I had put something, I'll just write 78 right here. You'll see that the Montgomery College does get truncated or chopped off. It's still in the cell. You could see that up here in your formula bar, but you can't see it here because it gets chopped off or truncated there. So we'll learn to manipulate that a little bit. I think that's it. Oh, the tabs. We talked about the tabs. And we do have a status bar down here and a zoom, just like we did see. I'm going to just erase this where it says Montgomery College. I can just hit delete if I'm right on this, on the cell that has information in it. So the intersection of a column and a row is called a cell. You see all these little squares or rectangles. Those do not print, like those lines. There is a way to set them to print, but they don't print. So I want you to be comfortable just moving around, just using the arrows just to show you. Left arrow, right arrow. It just moves that active cell. This is a really large worksheet. If I just hold down the right arrow, you see it doesn't just go to what our screen shows us up to O. I also just going to go down there's, you know, like a million or literally rows in an Excel spreadsheet. So we'll just try to work with this area, but it is okay if we do go past it a little bit. So page up, page down, right arrows, lots of movements. Control A is going to select the whole worksheet. If there is something that you need to do, like to apply bold to everything, or maybe you're applying a number format, you can always select all if you need to. Another way to select all is this triangle up here to the left of the A and above the 1. That also will select the whole worksheet. I'll do a little bit more selecting later in this video, but for right now I just want to be showing you a few things. If I want to select this area right here, it's called a range. And a range is just a bunch of cells that are next to each other. And what I would do if I select this here, I would call it the range D3 through D8. That's how I would say it. And I would write it D3 through D8. I'll just write that there. Select D3 through D8. And that's what I would do. Sometimes I have ranges that are not next to each other that I need to select, mostly for formatting reasons. But if I wanted to select this and maybe apply number format if there were some numbers already there, and then I wanted to select this column over here, they're non-contiguous, like they're not next to each other. So the way to do that is to select initially your first range and then hold down the Control key and select your second range. And now hold down the Control key again if you have a third range, and then select using your mouse. So the Control key, maybe I'll just fill it in here with yellow so you can see why I would do that. I'm going to now just select select and then hold down Control and select. If you don't hold down Control, you'll lose it. So I'm just putting some formatting there. So if I want to now select this range and then the range to the right, if I don't hold down Control when I'm selecting my next range, see, I'm gonna lose the first range. So hold down Control. It allows you to select ranges. Ranges can go horizontal or vertical. It will allow you to select ranges that are not next to each other. I'm just going to add a new worksheet here, just a blank one. Notice if you have sheet 1 and you add another one, it's sheet 2. Just to show you some different items here, a little bit more of the basics about Excel. If you were to type your first name and then underneath it, I'm just going to type the day of the month that I was born. I just want to show you the difference in formatting that comes up by default in Excel. This is a name or a word. Words are called labels in Excel. Numbers are called values. But what I want you to see here is how the label is automatically formatted to the left of the cell, kind of a left alignment, and numbers or values are automatically right aligned. And it does this so that our placeholders will, our number value places will line up correctly. We line our numbers up from the right. If you're going to write a formula, you do just write the formula. We're going to start it with an equal sign. We don't have any values in this worksheet, so you can always just type like 45 plus 34. Like just type it out. All formulas are going to start with an equal sign. And we're going to get in later modules into writing what's called functions, and they're a little bit more high-end than this, but I don't want you to forget that we still can just write these formulas. They can be handwritten. You just select these, and let me just write a couple. So let's say we have 14 bananas, and I'm going to just put some values in here for us. So what's the, I'll do a total, but normally we're going to use a sum function for a total, but just to show you how to write a formula using the cell address. Now, if I wanted to add the apples, the strawberries, and the bananas, notice that strawberries is too wide for my column. I can just put my mouse up against, in between the two columns that I need to widen, and I'm going to just double click. you double click in between two column headings, it will make the column exactly as wide as its longest entry. So in this case, it made D as long as strawberries. I never want to rewrite a number in a worksheet. And so what I want to do here basically is add 14 plus 21 plus 15, but I'm not going to rewrite the number. I'm going to refer to the cell address. So instead, I'm going to add, where is apples? Well, it's in E4. The value of apples that we have is in E4. The value of how many strawberries we have is in E5. And again, that's the name, that's the cell address is the column and the row. And you literally write it E5, like the letter E and then the number 5, or you can refer to the cells. Uppercase or lowercase doesn't matter. I always type lowercase and Excel will actually change the E to an uppercase. Just never have any spaces in a formula. It's just bad writing. It will work, but it's better just to learn it. No, you just tend to have extra errors and things if you start writing formulas wrong. Bananas are in E6. So I'm going to put equals to start my formula. And I don't want to write 14. I'm going to put E4. I can type E4 or I can click on it. I just decided to click on it. Plus E5. If I click on the cell, notice the cell reference here, plus E6. So this is going to add E4 plus E5 plus E6. That is my first formula I've written, and I just press enter or the right arrow or the up arrow or anything I can want to push to get out of that cell to make it go. And this 50 here is the result if you add 14 plus 21 plus 15. Now the reason we refer to our cell addresses is, let's say we get some extra apples and now we have 24 apples. I'm just going to hit enter and you notice that the total automatically updates itself. So formulas are written, just sometimes we need to add, subtract. Excel is going to follow the mathematical order of operations. And just so you know, always start, just a couple things here, always start with an equal sign. A plus sign is used to add. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. A minus sign is for subtraction. I'm sure you're familiar with that. If you ever need to multiply, you're going to use an asterisk. And if you ever need to divide, you're going to, doesn't want me to do this because it's a command. You're going to have to hit a slash key. And if you want to use an exponent, you're going to use a caret. So if I wanted to do, we already did an addition, E4 plus E5, just as an example. If I want to subtract, I can do, you know, anything I want. Let's just say I subtract strawberries and bananas. It's just a subtraction. If I want to multiply apples times bananas, I can do that. Just cell references, never retype the numbers. If I want to use division, it's just going to be equal 24. You can have a mixed cell reference. I can just also then type in a number if I don't have it written on the worksheet. And an exponent is like 3 to the 4th power. I could refer to cells also, but I don't want the number to be too long, so I'm just going to type it in. So I can still type in, but if it's written in the worksheet, then don't. Always refer to the cells. So 3 to the 4th power, that's like saying 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. What comes up in the cell is the result. Just delete some of this. If you ever need to edit a cell, even if it's a word or a formula, maybe you have a typo or you need to add something, you can just double click on the cell and notice that it kind of put my insertion point, or my cursor in the cell, and double click on strawberries, and see I can just now edit it and hit enter. Another thing I do, or way I edit my cells, is I hit F2, the function 2 key at the top of the keyboard on a PC, and it just puts your cursor in the, right in the cell. I'm going to write bread instead of bananas, and I can just edit it. Another thing you could do, if it was small or little, and maybe I just wanted this to say peaches, I could just type right over it. So however you want to edit. F2, double click, type over it, any of that is going to be good. If I need to insert a row at any time, I can just, it will go above insert row. It'll go above your active cell. You can, this is all in the home tab. If I want to insert a column, it's going to insert automatically to the left of what your, wherever you were. So see, I was in F and it moved it over. When I do insert a column or a row, like I had some numbers here. Here I had a, in F8, which used to be an E8, I had a formula. And because my everything in E now moved to F, all of the cell addresses automatically update. It's a really, really great feature. So you don't have to rewrite anything or redo anything. If you start adding more information, it just automatically all updates for you. Excel has this neat feature called autofill, and it basically, there's a bunch of series that some common things that we use in, particularly in Excel or in, it doesn't have to just be in accounting. A lot of people use Excel not for accounting. You can even keep track of your address book or names and numbers in Excel, or your inventory. It's not always just income and outgo. Something like, you can put it anywhere. The word January. Well, what do we know about January? A lot of accountants do, or in business, we keep track of our expenses monthly. So if you just write January and then get out of the cell and then get back into it to make it active, you'll notice at the bottom right, there's this little square. And you see the square? That is going to be your new favorite thing in Excel, I believe. It's called the fill handle, and we're going to use it a lot. I'm going to just put my mouse pointer over the fill handle, click and drag to the right, and then let go. And this is a series associated with January. I could have written any month, but this is called autofill, and whatever cells I selected are going to now be filled with whatever series is associated with that. It works horizontally and vertically. So again, I grabbed that fill handle and just moved it. So however far I selected, it will just fill in. So, and then when it gets to December, if I selected more, notice it will start over with January. There's some other things like maybe day of the week. I'll just start with Wednesday just to show you that you don't always have to start with Sunday. Just gonna use the fill handle, drag down and let go, and see there's a bunch of days of the week. Accountants are known to do their work by quarters, and there are 4 quarters in a year. So notice that you can use quarter 1, you can use QTR1, Q1, and when you use the fill handle to promote the series here, it's going to start over at 4. Not going to talk a lot about fonts and alignment in Excel because we did that in Word and it should be self-explanatory, but because these items were already typed, I do need to select them. The little difference in alignment, if I center alignment, it's going to be centered in the cell, where if I were to center in Word, it would center in between the margins. So there is center and right. Notice that these items that I selected are now to the right of the worksheet. Here's some indents. You can center vertically. You can, I'll show you in another work tab how to wrap text. We have some, this is called, it was shading in Word. It's called fill color in Excel. I can just fill the color of the cells in. So lots of formatting that we can do. We did some styles in Word, and we're going to see cell styles in Excel. So if you want to, I'm just going to select some text here so you can see what it looks like. Let's just look at a title style. See how it changes. It changes the font and could change the alignment, but these styles are just pre-formatted items that you can apply to text. Some of them have number formats and some of them just have the words. I'm going to go to a different tab now. This one here is called, I just named it Freeze. This is a very large worksheet. It has names and then months of the year. This could be income or maybe what they sold. I'm not really sure. It's already been formatted to some degree and filled in. There's no formulas. I'm just going to scroll down just to show you how large this is. Now notice what's happening. I wanted to show you, it's called Freeze. It's on the View tab, and I'm going to, well, I think it was already on, but Freeze was already on. So I'm going to freeze the first row, and now when I scroll, notice that that first row stays there, and so I can still see the titles, the January, February, March, because this is a very large worksheet. Let's just keep scrolling. But it has 80 different people because the first row is a heading. So this is 80 different people. So this is a good example of a pretty large worksheet. And if you do want to keep that heading row, you want to go to View and choose Freeze Panes. You can also unfreeze panes, and that will unfreeze it. In this case, we just froze the top row. So we could just unfreeze the top row. If you wanted to go to the right, we can also freeze the first column. And when I move to the right, notice that, so I can still see the numbers, like who's the person associated with these numbers, and I'm just going to the right. So we'll just kind of temporary, it does save with your workbook, but it's a really nice feature called Freeze. And I want to look at the page setup for printing and some other things with kind of more about the document, less about the you know, the numbers and the formulas and things. Let's take a look at some of the features. How about headers and footers? We did headers and footers in Word. They're very similar yet very different in Excel. Headers and footers are going to be information that prints at the top or bottom of a worksheet in this case, and they're done similarly, but I'll show you why they're different. So you go to Insert and then choose Header and Footer. I'm in design mode or something, it wouldn't let me in. Here we go. Insert, Header, Footer. I'll just go to Header. If you want to scroll down, you'll see the footer. You get a contextual menu that comes up when you're in Headers and Footers called the Design tab. And notice the header, the footer is the same, it's just at the bottom. It's already divided into 3 different sections. Anything you put at the left will be left aligned. If you type something or insert a code in the center, it'll be centered. And if you do it in the right, it will automatically, and if you can see the cursor flashing, be right aligned, which is really great. If you want to type something like your name in, you can just type your name. I'll type your name. You can put more than one item if you want. I'm going to go to the center and insert maybe the page number. And what I'm going to want you to do is never type in things that can be pulled from the document itself or from the workbook in this case. The time, the date, the pages, the file name. You can even put the sheet tab name. This sheet tab is called Freeze. And if you look in your design tab that comes up, right here, it's called Header and Footer Elements. So if I want to insert the page number, I can just click on that icon right there and put that code in. Right now it says ampersand, left bracket, page, right bracket. But when I click out of it, the 1 does appear. So it is a code. I can look to see that you put the code in, but it's a good idea, just like in Word, like you never insert the page number, you always let you know, Word do it. We're going to do the same thing with Excel. The sheet name, that's the tab down here. It's called the sheet. When I click off of it, you'll see it's called Freeze because that's the name of the sheet tab name. The file name is my files. Let's see what my file name here. It says ampersand file. It's just called Excel Module 1 Workbook. It's just the name that I gave it. So always use these fields, these codes here in header and footer elements, and they're the same as they are for footers. You just have to scroll down and get it. Let me go back to normal view here. The properties of a workbook, and you can do this in all the Microsoft applications. If you just go to File, they're kind of behind the scenes information. You can look up the size, number of pages, a lot of different things. You just click on File, and then to the right here, the properties. Who's the author of the workbook, who it was last modified by, the dates, how long it was edited for. You can go into properties and do advanced properties, some statistics about the document or workbook in this case. You could do this in Word also. Lots of different information that you can get. And if you want to put a title or tag words or categorize your files, if you're working in an office and other people are using your workbooks, this is a good place for them to go and look for some other information. But I can see when it was created, when it was last modified, some things like that, and they're called properties. Last thing I want to show you is a couple different things to do. Even though we're not printing in our class, it's important to learn how to print and all the different things you can do to a spreadsheet to, you know, print it, make it look nicer. Lots of times I'm changing my Excel to landscape orientation. That will turn the paper sideways, because a lot of times our work is just more horizontal than we're used to maybe in Word. It's a bunch of things I can do in page layout. I also will do these in print preview, some of them. But let's take a look at page layout tab, where you can change your margins, where you can, here's that orientation. It's already on landscape. You can change your print area if there's only a certain number of months or people that you want to print. You can adjust where your pages are going to break. So that's a couple things you can do in page layout. I'm going to go into print preview by going into file and then print. And I will see a preview of what this will look like. So this is already on landscape. I had already changed it. Just going to scroll down. One of the things I'm going to want to do is probably repeat. This is the first page. Oops. First page, the second page. See, when I go to the second and then the third page, I lose that heading row. I'm going to want to print my heading row. So I need to do that back in page layout. I can choose print titles, and then it's going to ask me what row to repeat. And I can click on the arrow and just pick the row. So I'm going to pick the first row. Normally it's the first row. It's going to show $1 through $1. That's giving an absolute cell reference. We'll learn more about absolute cell references later. So I've picked a row to repeat at the top. And now when I scroll through, there's page 1, page 2, I've repeated this row here. So we will always see the headings. And you could have more than one row if you needed to. Another thing I do a lot in Excel, well, I do change the margins, maybe make them smaller. I want to fit as much as I can. So this went on to 3 pages. My goal is not to get it to 1 page, but if I only have a little bit of information spilling onto a second or third page, like maybe this one, we have it to 2 pages, just to show you a couple things you can do. This might not be the best worksheet for it, but in print preview at the bottom, there's something called scaling. And scaling is to let Excel reduce the fonts and do some things for you. So I might fit on 1 page. That makes it really small, but that does work for many worksheets if you're just spilling a little bit onto the second page. So this took 2.5 sheets that would have printed, and it brings it down to 1. It fit everything, all the columns and rows on 1 page. I think that's going to be a little small for most people to read, but sometimes it does work. What may be better is to fit all rows on 1 page or fit all columns on 1 page. And you're just going to have to look at your different, I'll change it back to no scaling. And then let me do fit all columns on 1 page. That looks a little bit better. And it will, again, just depend on your worksheet. This goes to 2 pages now, but all of the columns that go across, we had January all the way to December, those all go on one sheet. So just know that you can adjust, just like in Word. There's lots of choices, things to do